Good morning to you. Another bit of a rough morning. Trying to get something called Restream IO working, and that means we can stream to multiple platforms. We can stream to YouTube and Facebook and Twitch and some other stuff. That plugin, that service failed miserably this morning. It didn't work like it was supposed to. It created some kind of weird loop where nothing went out to YouTube. It's just growing pains. Hard to get this thing going. Trying to get the ability to stream to multiple services tonight for Trivia Night. You know, we're coming out tonight playing trivia. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good time. So hopefully folks come out to join in the Trivia Night. We'll get the work on the restreaming today. We'll work on getting Restream IO up and running. Took an extra cup of Illy coffee in the Kansas City mug this morning to get through that. Wow, it's the pains of trying to get things, technologies working, right? But enough of that, Do join tonight. Trivia Night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll get everything up and running about 45 minutes before. That way you can log in to Socrative, get the question and answer application up and running. We have 40 questions tonight. We're throwing potpourri in, or potpourri, however you want to say that one. We've got some networking questions. Do you know networking? We've got some historical malware. Do you know historical malware? And then there's some signs and symbols. Do you know your signs and symbols in the security/hacking world? Do you know them? Can you identify them? Might be some surprises in there for you today. We will see. We'll see if somebody can unseat Mike Bravo. He's winning all the prizes, taking everything. So we'll see if someone can unseat him. But on to the news. On to the news for the morning. As we've talked about almost every morning, coronavirus is the tool of choice. It's the subject of choice. It's the topic line of choice for all the folks out there doing scamming and phishing attacks. It's used on email phishing, spear phishing, whaling, scams. Just about everything that's going on right now is tied to somehow the coronavirus. That's the way in. And a top U.S. Secret Service official, a guy named Michael D. Ambroso, testified yesterday before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Let me try that again. He testified during the SETI. Okay, 3 times the chart. He testified during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing on coronavirus-related fraud. Try to say that, I guess 3 times fast, and we dare you. He emphasized, even if they assume the fraud rate is low, they can expect more than $30 billion to end up in the hands of criminals. And this is just based on an estimate they're making. They've done a lot. The Secret Service is tasked with disrupting and tracking the schemes that these malicious folks are doing, trying to get their hands on the money. They're leading the charge for protecting that money. So far, they say they've prevented about $1 billion in scams from being lost to malicious actors, but there's obviously a spike in those types of phishing attacks, those types of malware attacks, those types of scams. Right now, Google's announced that in April it was tracking more than 18 million malware and phishing-related COVID-19 attacks every day. Crazy amount of stuff going on out there. That ties really in well with our second story out of Great Britain, and I thought a little bit about presenting this one because normally most folks that are watching this channel are watching from the United States, but this is indicative of what could happen here. So students in Great Britain are being warned of a scam related to coronavirus. Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, or HMRC, I think they must be something like the IRS and the Customs combined, are warning about a new scam that, as I love how these things go, there's a scam going around in Great Britain to Great Britain college students, and essentially the scam is saying, beware of scams, and click on this link if you think you can report a scam. Obviously, the link or the form, because some are forms as well, that's the scam. When you click on the link to report the scam, then you're being driven to a malicious site. If you don't complete this form, it's going to say you're not going to get a refund, you're not going to be able to claim your tax refund online, all kinds of stuff. Just the normal phishing, scammy type stuff we've been seeing around coronavirus. So I included it today. If it's going on in Great Britain, we can assume that someone will pick it up and bring it here to the United States. That's just, the way things roll. That's the way things are. Third up today, China's in the news. Apparently the Federal Communications Commission, or the FCC, asleep at the wheel is all I can say. What in the heck are they doing? They spend a lot of time evaluating U.S. corporations that are involved in communications, internet and wired TV, that kind of stuff. There's a U.S. Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations found, after a year-long report, the FCC essentially has not monitored Chinese telecom at all in the last 20 years. For nearly 20 years, I should say, almost 20 years. The subcommittee's Republican and Democratic leaders say the three carriers referred to as China Telecom America, China Ucom America, Con and ConNet, operated in the United States for nearly 20 years with little or no oversight from the U.S. government, the federal government. It's amazing that this happened. Comes after, apparently there's a lot of FCC stepped up scrutiny of telecom companies controlled by Chinese government. Really all these companies, all three of these companies, are owned by the government of China. So it's kind of weird that U.S. companies and other companies from the Western world are being scrutinized very hard by the FCC, but these Chinese companies, three of them, have just pretty much gone unregulated for 20 years. And we know, based on past TTPs, or tools, techniques, and procedures used by malicious actors coming from China, whether they're state-sponsored or not, a lot of times these types of facilities that are stationed here in the United States are used to launch the attacks against us. So all I can say is asleep at the wheel. The FCC is asleep at the wheel. I guess worried about getting other things past like net neutrality and things like that. But last up on the plate today, there are critical updates in Adobe Flash Player. Adobe's got this thing scheduled. It's going to go away in December of this year. Flash Player has been the source of numerous malicious attacks for the last a bunch of years. As many years as I can remember, 10 years, 20 years, Flash has been terribly useful for attackers. Critical, what they call it, critical use after free flaw, CVE 2020-9633, discovered in Flash Player on all OSs, which is, they call it a Priority 2 update, resolves vulnerabilities in a product that has been historically evaluated or resolves vulnerabilities in a product that has historically been elevated risk, which was essentially Adobe saying they know the product's weak, they know the product is susceptible to attack. There's some other updates that are bundled with this for the Adobe update. Some other stuff's coming out that patches some other flaws, but really the Flash is the big thing that's getting updated. It's terribly weak, terribly vulnerable. Most modern browsers, Chrome, Firefox, I think Safari, everything except for Internet Explorer, and I think Edge has probably killed it too. They've all disabled the use of Flash by default in the browser. So if you're using Google by default, Flash will not even run. It's been replaced by HTML5. It's bad. Don't create Flash things. Don't run things in Flash. Flash is just bad. It's been bad for a number of years. It's just not good. But that's your roundup. That's the news from the day, including the inability to get Restream IO working for us. It's that thing. We're trying to get out on more platforms for the Trivia Night. We really want to expand the Trivia Night to people beyond just YouTube. Tonight may be just YouTube again, just based on, we'll probably do a test run. So if you see another live video come up sometime midday today, sometime this afternoon, don't worry about it. It's just going to be us testing. We're going to test to see if we can get Restream IO running. If we can get it running, we'll use Restream IO. We'll broadcast on YouTube, probably my Facebook page, and also on Twitch. We've got a Twitch channel. I don't know how many people are out there. A lot of times that's more for gamers, but there are some security folks out in that world. The biggest thing, Trivia Night. Come out and have fun tonight. We'll have a good time. Unseat Mike Bravo. Somebody else gets some prizes behind that guy. Besides that guy, he doesn't need them all. But right now he gets them all. Mike Bravo, I'm not making fun of you, man. You're a paratrooper after my own heart. But you can't have all the prizes, man. It's just not fair. So let's jump in to, let's go back real quick. Back one time. Let's jump into our topic of the day, Wi-Fi. This is everywhere. Wireless security. We're going to cover the basics of Wi-Fi. We're going to cover the basics of what's going on with Wi-Fi, how you can use it effectively, and the basics of what you need to do to secure it. So that's the important thing. So Jim with Cyber-Recon, please smash that notification button so you know when new stuff's coming out. You need to know when new stuff's coming out. You need to know when Trivia Night's coming out. You need to know that. Subscribe, comment below. We'll always respond to you. Also, let your friends know. If you've got security folks if you've got people that want to get into security, let them know about our channel. We really appreciate it. So, on to Wi-Fi security, wireless technologies. This is part of Security Plus. This is part of your body of knowledge you need to know if you are going to work in security. You know this is part of Tools and Technologies, Domain 2 of Security Plus, Wi-Fi. So let's jump into it, as they say. So we all start with the access point. Normally, I 1,000 times, I have one with me right here at the desk. Don't see it around. We must have moved. That's that thing in your house that you connect to when you're walking around on your tablet, your phone, your your laptop computer, whatever, you're connecting Wi-Fi. You don't have a cable coming out of your device, but you're still on the internet. That's that Wi-Fi access point. That's the access point. That's the entry and exit to the wireless network, and that bridges onto your wired network. So normally, most small offices, or home users have an access point, something like a Belkin or Linksys or something like that. It plugs into their cable modem, and it broadcast this wireless signal throughout the house or the office. This replaces the need to run cables. A lot of times, you can't run cables for one reason or another. Maybe it's a historic building. Maybe you're leasing the place. You can't drill holes in the wall. Maybe renting. Maybe it's just too far away. It's too hard to get cabling where you need to get it. Maybe you just don't want to do it. So this acts as a primary entry point into your wired network from your wireless. It connects your wireless clients to the wired network. So you can have a combination of people connected on wires, normal Cat5, Cat6 cables, and then people connected on wireless. What we're going to talk about this morning, obviously, is the wireless network. So normally, you associate your wireless network with a name. And that name, the name of the network, is actually your SSID, or your service set identifier. Normally, by default, this is the name of your wireless network. This is broadcast on every single packet that goes out. It's attached as a header. Attached to the header of the packet, 32-character identifier that's attached to the header. That's your name. It can be disabled, but it's still going to be attached to the header. So we're not going to broadcast our SSID, but it has to be by the standard that Wi-Fi uses. This 32-character identifier has to be attached to the header of the packet. We should change those default ones. When you get your wireless access point from, Best Buy or Home Depot or wherever you're getting it from. I don't know if you get wireless access points for Home Depot, but when you get it, it's going to come with a default SSID. Maybe it's Tsunami, maybe it's Linksys, whatever it is. Change that to something that you want. I wouldn't recommend using your last name, because then if people are looking to attack a network, they can normally connect your last name with your access point. I've seen some crazy ones out there. FBI surveillance van is always a classic. A lot of people, almost everybody, sees that in their lifetime of looking at wireless networks. Lately, 5G broadcast tower has been a unique identifier people have used. Come up with your own. It's your network name. Come up with your SSID. Change the default. Even if you're disabling broadcast of the SSID, which you can in the access point when you log on the access point, it's still going to be attached to every packet. Access point use a broadcast beacon frame to announce the network name. It's announced 10 times a second. That can be disabled. We can disable the broadcasting of the SSID. That way you have to know the name to get connected. Clients associate with access points using a handshake, and the client must have correct parameters, including the correct SSID, to associate with that access point. So that's the first part. It's built as part of the security of the Wi-Fi standard 802, the IEEE standard 802. It doesn't really provide any security at all. It's rudimentary security at best, even if broadcasting is disabled, because that 32-character is attached to the header. Anybody that's got Windows XP or above can still see your SSID. It's unfortunate, it's just the way that wireless is developed. You can implement MAC filtering, and this works just like we use it in switches. You can identify those MACs that can be, or media access control addresses, the addresses of the network cards, the wireless network cards that are allowed to connect to your infrastructure, your access point. This is easy. If you've got 5 or 10 machines that are going to connect, just get their MAC addresses, add them into the MAC filtering table. Those are the allowed addresses. Anything else is not allowed. The problem is with all modern operating systems, even some older ones, you can go in with a tool and change it. Sometimes you don't even need a tool. Sometimes with some operating systems, you just go in and change the MAC address. It's supposed to be, the MAC address initially was hard-coded or burned in to the network card, and it couldn't be changed. Well, that's that's over time people have figured out how to change their MAC address. So the MAC address can be changed, and if I'm going to try to attack someone's wireless network, I can just change my MAC address to one of the ones that's allowed on the network, spoofing it or fooling the network, and then I'm on. So it's, again, a rudimentary level of security that can be implemented. It's used in access points, it's used in switches. It's the thing we want to do. Signal strength is related to wireless signal. Your signal strength can be limited by a number of things. If you've got metal in the walls, if there's metal partitions that you're going through, if there's power cabling, even microwaves. Microwaves, funny enough, microwaves put off the same frequency as some of the wireless signals. So if you're getting intermittent interference, it only happens once in a while. It may be someone operating a microwave. So when they turn the microwave on, that maybe is killing your wireless signal. Can be controlled in some of your hardware devices. So some access points have the ability to adjust signal strength, increase it or decrease it to a specific level. This can be manual or automatic. The default setting for most people is going to be sufficient. And some organizations dial in the signal strength. So there is a crossover point, right? Normally we want to broadcast at the highest signal we can to get that signal covering our area that we want wireless to be provided in. The problem is if we have it too high, then maybe it can bleed out into another area, into a neighboring office, or even into the parking lot or the street where other people could pick it up. So obviously you want to make sure you're dialing in that signal strength to be accurate or correct for your implementation. There's a couple bands that are used, and these are the band selection or the strength. There's bands of frequencies that are used for 802 traffic, 802.11 traffic. The two primary ones are the 2.4 gigahertz range, and it's not just 2.4 gigahertz, there's a range in there that's used. And that's used for your 802.11b and 802.11g traffic. Then there's also the 5 gigahertz, which is 802.11a, n, and ac. The big thing is these bands, normally your access point will automatically pick the best band. You can go in there and manually select the bands you want to use. I find that it's much easier to let the system do it. That way if you pick a specific part of the band to use, and someone else gets on there on that same band, normally that's going to cause interference, and that's going to reduce your signal strength because you have two different access points fighting for the same band, or frequency range, so to speak. Multi-band access points exist that use both 802.11b and 802.11a, or any combination of the 5 gigahertz and the 2.4 gigahertz ranges. I just let the system do it because if someone else gets on and gets on the same frequency band I'm on, the access point will automatically switch over to another one and move everybody over. So normally that works the best. If you're in a corporate environment or some type of organizational environment, you can have somebody be that frequency band manager and make sure that everyone is set up correctly and you're not getting interference. You really have to be a big organization to have someone to do that. The other thing we want to think about is antenna type and antenna placement. The Wi-Fi signal is an RF signal. It's a radio frequency signal. The design and placement of antennas affects signal strength, right? Obviously, if you put it in the basement of a building that has concrete walls, that's not going to go side to side too much. It may go up and down. You have to think about where you're putting your access point to provide signal throughout the building you're in. Gain is the measurement of antenna efficiency. The higher gain, the better the efficiency of the antenna. Omnidirectional antennas cover all directions, but they have a lower gain. So it's going everywhere, so that signal power is being broadcast in 360 degrees and up and down, all over. So it's that signal's being spread out, so it's weaker. Directional antennas have a smaller distance. They pointed. Normally they're a very specific range. They're focused, and they can cover a longer distance. Common directional antennas you'll see are Yagi antennas or panel antennas. If you've ever seen any of the old hacking things where they turn a Pringles can into a Wi-Fi antenna, sometimes some movies use that, that's a Yagi antenna. panel antennas. You'll see them in organizations. Sometimes you'll see them in stores where it's just a big square, normally white or gray panel mounted to the wall. That's usually a directional panel antenna. If you think about the normal pattern we have from a normal access point, most of the small office, home office stuff we use is going to be an omnidirectional antenna. And the way we think about the pattern of that, it essentially looks like a donut that is coming from the antenna. So it kind of lobes up and around in all directions. So in the 360, it goes around and it kind of shaped like a donut. So up and down is not as high as side to side. So depending on how you can place your antennas, you can move them around. That'll help sometimes get better signal. So if you think about that donut around the antenna, sometimes you want to get more signal up and down. You can turn your antenna horizontal and it'll broadcast up and down. So think about objects around your access point. They can also cause interference. So think about that. Also think about fat clients versus thin clients. And we're not thinking about folks going on a diet or anything like this. Most home office, small office, and most home users are using what's considered a fat client. It does everything. Everything is contained inside that box. That's normally your DHCP server is in there. Normally some rudimentary firewall is in there. Normally we can have DNS servers in there. Sometimes we have MAC filtering in there. And we can have a proxy in there that will help filter internet traffic. All kinds of stuff can be put inside that one box. Everything's controlled there. You set up your users, you set up who can connect. All that stuff can be set up in that one device. Thin client, on the other hand, is just essentially just an antenna and some small hardware that allows it to be controlled from a central server. A central server in an organization will control all of the access points. They're thin, they're smaller, they're lightweight. Normally, they're even a little bit less expensive. The fat versus thin, different in the management, the encryption, the cost, and the implementation. If you're setting up wireless in a large building, you're not going to want to have a bunch of off-the-shelf fat clients that you put on every floor and you have to run around and manage or log into each of them individually and manage. You'll normally go with thin clients and a centralized server. You update things in the centralized server like maybe the password, and it updates all the thin clients. They all connect to the main server. And that's what we're talking about, controller-based versus standalone. Standalone is that Belkin router, that Linksys router, that router access point that you buy at Best Buy or Walmart or wherever. That's all managed when you log into that device. You manage the encryption, the authentication. You can do channel management. You can update patches, all done to that one device. But if you have these, you have to go to each device or log into each device and do that management. With controller-based, that server, that centralized controller, it does everything. You update patches there, it updates everything. You do channel management there, it does channel management across the network. You do authentication there, it updates everything. So essentially, it's a single server that updates a bunch of smaller, lightweight access points versus one access point that does everything. And that's the rundown. That's what we're talking about in wireless, right? That's what you need to know for this part of the Security Plus exam. That's the stuff that you need to know. I'm glad you joined me this morning. Glad you put up with going from one stream to the other. We'll work on getting Restream IO up and running today. It's one of those things that looks like it's a little more challenging than their instructions provide. So if you do see additional pop-ups today where we're going live, that's just us testing, trying to get it up and running before Trivia Night tonight, Cybersecurity Trivia Night, 7 p.m. Eastern. Hope to see you there. And like always, I'm Jim with Cyber-Recon. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the button to be notified. We'll see you next time. Be safe out there.